Hello, I just wanted to go over the first chapter a little bit and explain that this first chapter is filled with almost everything you're going to need to know as far as prefixes and suffixes for the entire course. As we move through each of the chapters that cover body systems, you'll be learning the roots of those body systems, and then they'll be bringing back those prefixes and suffixes that you learned in this very first chapter. So it's really important that you get that stack of 3x5 cards and start writing out those flashcards right now, because you're going to do most all your flashcards right now in the very beginning of this course. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you really quick what I'm talking about, where to go to make those flashcards. Now, will you maybe have some test questions over some of the supplemental terms? Maybe. I've tried to make sure that the end of the chapter quizzes will focus on most of the prefixes, the suffixes, and all of your root words. But you do need to look at those other terms in the chapter too. So, like I said, let me share my screen with you to the textbook. And when I do that, we're going to go and look at, you're going to look that you see noun suffixes. Whenever you put a suffix at the end of one of your medical terms, now you're going to actually change or define what this word is meaning. So when you see something like logy at the end of a root word, you're going to know that this means the study of whatever that root word is. So let's go down, and you can see that in table 1, you're going to see that these are the suffixes that generally, there may be others, but for the most part, these are the ones that all mean condition of. So when you see IA at the end of a word, and they're giving you an example of dementia, you can see that it's, the definition is a loss of intellectual function from mentis, or we know it usually a mental mentation. Then you're going to see that IA means a condition of something to do with mentation or your mind. You can see ISM, which we hear this racism as an example that they're giving you here. So a condition of, and then you see SIS, which is very, very frequently used in medical terms, which is a condition of so many things. And here we have thrombosis as the example. And with a Y, as simple as putting a Y at the end of the word. Now you have atony. In this case, atony means that it's a lack of muscle tone. So then you'll see as we move through, your textbook actually gives you some exercises that you can do so that you can start working through and actually interacting with the material, which is super important. And this is the ebook version. So hopefully when you buy your textbook, you make sure you buy it, you get access to your ebook, which is a great tool to use for all your study materials if you're the type of person that doesn't want to write in your book and you want to sell your book back. I had one student in the last semester tell me that one of the biggest pieces of advice that she would have given herself or to give to you would be to buy the book. Don't rent the book. Of course, everybody has to do whatever works the best for them. As we work through the next table, you see that here are the suffixes for medical specialties. And many of you already know some of these: psychiatry, pediatrics. Again, I mentioned study of already, so physiology. You take anatomy and physiology. And then you have some exercises that you can use to work through those. And then you come to your next table, which are pertaining to, like, or resembling something else, or something pertains to a particular root word, as in cardiac. It pertains to the heart. So whatever it is that you're reading about, or there may be another word in the text, which will tell you that this pertains to this root word, whatever it might be. So they give you some others. Nuclear, AR at the end. You've got IC. We see that a lot in just our everyday English speech, but that means pertaining to. In this case, they're giving you anatomy or anatomic. So, depending on where you're, the anatomic position of the body. And OUS, you'll see OUS all the time in our regular English words that we use that are non-medical words. And in this case, they're giving us the example of cutaneous, so pertaining to the skin. And you get the idea of what I'm trying to go through here with you as you go through the tables. It's really, really important. This is where some of the key information is in the text. And in between your text, you're obviously going to find your explanations about forming plurals as an example. This is really the most important part of, it's not the most important, it's not the only important part, but it's the most important part of getting the concepts of medical terminology down. Once you work through this and you have your stack of flashcards, you can keep them there. Then you'll work through each of the different chapters and you'll say, I don't remember. If you keep your flashcards in the category that they're in, and you know that this means a condition of, and if you're looking at a word, it's like neurology. Okay, I know it is, but what's neuro mean? So that's your you're going to find that in your neurology chapter of the textbook. So it goes all through suffixes, and then we're going to move on, and it's going to move into prefixes.
Forming plurals.
So we're going to have tons and tons of prefixes you didn't even realize existed, most likely. So we have 5 tables of prefixes, and these are categorized by numbers, as you can see here. And as you go through this, I bet you know majority of all of these. And if you know them, you don't necessarily need to make a flashcard unless you want to. But once you go through your flashcards, some of the best advice is if you know it already, take it out of your stack and put it to your known stack. If you don't know it, leave it in there. Those are the ones that you need to spend your time practicing with. If you already know them, skip through it. Don't waste your time restudying things that you already know, because as you go through the course, you'll have other coursework to do. You don't need to be spending time on something you already know. So on negative prefixes, you have negatives. Then you're going to go through and you're going to have, excuse me for going so fast here, direction. So this we use a lot when you're talking about whether or not a body part is coming towards the body, away from the body. Are you abducting or adducting? The way I have always remembered it from my very, very early days of taking medical terminology, when I was just trying to figure out how am I going to remember those terms? I remember that add means adding to. So when you're bringing something towards the body, you're adding to the body. So I remember that AD is add, so that's coming to. So then an AB, abduct, would be something going away from the body. And when I was thinking about this, I thought, what's another word you hear? How about absent? Somebody that's not in class anymore in the case of a student. So they're taking away, they're not here with us, so they're absent. So then we have degrees. So you pretty much always know this: hyper, hypo, super. But what you may not know is you may not know oligo, which means abnormally low or low, not very much of. And especially we see this here, their example they give in the textbook is oligospermia, a low count of sperm cells, but we also use it in obstetrics too when it has to do with the amniotic fluids. So you'll see that later in almost the last chapter of the textbook. Then you also have size and comparison between equilateral. You see these things in math too, or equilibrium, whether or not somebody is dizzy or not. Homeostasis, you'll see that. And isometrics, you see that in math. And here we're using it isocellular, so the same or equal to something else, micro. So most of these terms you probably have heard already before. Maybe you haven't heard of this as right here, the term, it means varied or irregular. So that is poly, poi, oh my gosh, poikilothermic. Poikilothermic. I have to study over that one, won't I? You have study opportunities. Then you have prefixes for time. So ante, before, pre also, is meaning before, pro, before, and post or after. So you have three things here that you've heard that prodromal, this is a condition of before something happens, something precedes, something that happens before someone develops an illness. So it is some symptoms, but it's something that might happen before they go into a full-fledged event. And oftentimes you can even think of this in a migraine headache. Sometimes people have an aura, something they know. Once they have something, this aura happen, they know they're going to have a headache. So it would be a prodromal kind of condition or symptoms that they know happens before. We have prefixes for position, indo, exo, something that means together, sin or sim in the middle, telescope, teletherapy. Then every chapter will have a case study where you can practice some of the terms as you see it in speech. You can listen to the text, or you can also read the text to see how it might be used in context. So, where are we now with our chapter? Every chapter will have a review so that you can practice. Fill in the blanks. This is so important. Use your textbook as your tool for studying and learning the terms over and over and over again. So, this is the end of where I wanted to go with this video. Thank you very much for joining me.